Hello and welcome to the history of cinemas in Greater London north of the Thames River for 1920 to 1929. 1920. On April 26 in King's Cross, the cinema opens. In May, the Provincial Cinematograph Theatres opens the Rink Cinema in Finsbury Park. On November 8, the Rialto in Enfield opens. The Everyman Cinema in Hampstead opens on November 15. In the 21st century, the Everyman chain is based off this cinema. Biocolor Picture Theatres opens the cinema in Dalston on December 6. The Empire Kinema in Willesden opens on December 22. In December, the Queen's Hall Cinema in Cricklewood opens. These cinemas also opened in 1920. The People's Picture Playhouse in Clerkenwell is renamed Globe Cinema, which started to show films. Here are the changes for 1920. The Provincial Cinematograph Theatres taken over these theatres. The old Rink Cinema in Finsbury Park closes. 1921. On January 17, the Premier Cinema in Enfield opens. In Acton, the Globe opens on March 26 as Britain's greatest cinema. On July 14, the Bruce Grove Picture Palace in Tottenham opens. The Rivoli Cinema in Whitechapel opens on August 1. These cinemas also opened in 1921. Here are the changes for 1921. These cinemas closed in 1921. 1922. The West Kensington Super Cinema in West Kensington opens on May 22. The Alexandra Theatre in Stoke Newington started to show films. Here are the changes for 1922. These cinemas closed in 1922. 1923. On August 16, the Pavilion Cinema in Shepherd's Bush opens. The Ideal Picture Palace in Poplar reopens. Here are the changes for 1923. Biocolor Picture Theatres taken over these cinemas in November. These cinemas closed in 1923. 1924. In May, the Tolmer Cinema in Euston opens. It was the cheapest cinema in London. On December 1, the Regent Cinema in Hayes opens. Here are the changes in 1924. These cinemas closed in 1924. 1925. On April 27, the Hippodrome Cinema in Barnet opened and is renamed New Barnet Kinema on October 10. The Stamford Hill Cinema in Stamford Hill opens on December 26. The King George's Cinema in Poplar opens. In November, the Poplar Hippodrome Theatre in Poplar starts to show films. These cinemas are sold to provincial cinematograph theatres. The Canadian Rink Cinema in Tottenham closes. 1926. The Kensington Kinema in Kensington opens on January 3. On December 27, the Foresters Super Cinema in Bethnal Green opens. The King's Hall Cinema in Southall opens. Here are the changes for 1926. These cinemas became part of British Gaumont Cinemas. These cinemas closed in 1926. 1927. The Empire Theatre in Edmonton starts to show films full-time. The Willesden Hippodrome Theatre in Harlesden opens on September 3. On December 22, the Broadway Super Cinema in Stratford opens. The cinema in Mill Hill opens. Here are the changes for 1927. These cinemas closed in 1927. 1928. On September 27, the Lido Cinema in Islington opens. On October 1, the Lido Picture House in Golders Green opens. The Twickenham Kinema in Twickenham closes on October 15. The Carlton Cinema in Upton Park opens on October 29. Also opening on October 29, the Lockton Cinema in Lockton opens. In December, the Grange Cinema in Dagenham opens. Here are the changes for 1928. British Gaumont rapidly expands its chain of cinemas in London. Here is a list. United Picture Theatres added these cinemas to its chain. The Bayswater Cinema in Bayswater and the Paragon Palace in Southall closes. 1929. British Gaumont takes over provincial cinematograph theatres. On February 4, the Royal Cinema in North Kensington opens. The Regent Theatre in Stamford Hill is opened by Provincial Cinematograph Theatres on February 18 and shortly taken over by British Gaumont shortly after. On August 4, the Wanstead Empire Cinema in Wanstead opens and closed on October 24. The Commodore Cinema in Hammersmith opens on September 14. The Rivoli Cinema in Ruslip opens on September 30. The Capitol Cinema in Upminster opens on October 10. On October 14, the Chingford Pavilion Cinema in Chingford opens. The Capitol Cinema in Barking opens on October 21. In Twickenham, the Luxor Cinema opens on November 18. The Palace Cinema in Southall opens on November 30. The Capitol Cinema in Winchmore Hall opens on December 26. Here are the changes for 1929. Associated British Cinemas takes over these cinemas. British government takes over these cinemas. These cinemas closed in 1929. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.